science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction. Fiction. Fiction.
Triskaideka salutations to all you cognonauts out there, and welcome to another episode of Exofathom. I am Nick, and I am joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Mike. Happy Friday.
What?
Triskaideka.
Triskaideka. I didn't. That's awesome.
Happy Freaky Friday to you, Mike. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's been a decent Friday, so I think I'm sitting on the on the anti-pole. So yes. Friday the 13th is actually a good luck day for me.
Hey, that's all right. You can utilize that energy. And we have Ayla here. How are you?
Hey, everybody. I don't know what that was about. For some reason, you caught me off guard, and then I heard my name, and then there was a pause, and I
just went with the Fat Albert.
So that's my day.
Awesome.
This is the cluster.
Sweet. Well, glad to be with you guys this Friday again, as always, and glad to have you guys listening whenever you are listening to this. We very much appreciate it. Tonight, it seems only fitting that we talk about Friday the 13th, since today is Friday the 13th. It's very spooky, very scary. Or is it? We're going to dive into that tonight, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about the mythology that may have inspired Friday the 13th, a couple things that we as a society do to avoid the number 13, and maybe a little bit about the Knights Templar at the end. So,
do you talk about the ritualistic body modifications that have in modern day transpired on Friday the 13th?
Well, yeah, that was the whole crux of this episode, so I guess we can just finish it here. Good night, everybody. Thank you. No, actually, it's a good point, Ayla, and I think we can probably work that into this episode as well. I'm sure you'll find an opening to relate it to something.
Oh, okay. You were joking earlier, right?
Yeah.
I did just okay. Because that's happened to me sometimes where I'm like, ooh, there's like this really clever thing I'm going to bring at the end. And then like one of y'all will bust out with it right off the bat. And I'm like, God damn it. You know what?
Yeah.
Don't you know we're trying to look smart? So if you think it's clever and you're smart, we're going to obviously think it's clever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to you listening out there, if you are listening to us, we think you are clever and smart because we ramble for quite some time.
Well, I mean, maybe not so smart then.
We're not the brightest people in the whole. Chad is always smarter, no matter what.
I was just trying to give a compliment. Like, if you're listening out there, wouldn't you like a compliment? I don't know. It seems nice. That's a nice thing to do. Yeah.
Sure.
You're the bright energy of the show.
Trying.
All right. Well, let's try to get into the show without much further ado. Again, we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th today. And I don't really have a whole big structure for this episode. Again, there are some things that I want to bring up, and then we can have sort of a casual conversation about all of this and see if there's any connections or links that we can draw upon. But my question to you guys to sort of ease us into this topic is, and this is a review of something that we've already covered in our superstition episode way back when, but I wanted to ask you guys again, maybe for consistency's sake, but also to see if it's changed. Do you guys have any superstitions? Are you superstitious about anything?
I might be a little stitious.
I think you said that exact line in the superstition episode. You get an A for consistency.
You are welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. So I'm trying to think. I honestly, as of late, I've been very undecided. So one week I might be a little more superstitious. And another week I'm like, screw that, but I don't know how that would relate exactly. So like, the salt over like if you spill salt and you're supposed to throw it over your shoulder, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, okay, I spilled salt. Let me do this thing. Other times I'm like, screw that. No, I make my own fate, and I just leave it, and I just drop the salt. But I don't do anything.
Oh no.
I know. So I think I'm kind of a bad example.
You're supposed to throw the salt in the devil's eye. That's what that is.
So he's behind your left shoulder? That's
All the
creepy.
time.
Oh,
is that what that
always.
is? That's really creepy. I don't like.
Well, just don't look over your left shoulder. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's right. Mike,
Pepper
what about
spray.
yeah? What about you? Any
Or-
superstitions?
I guess, Nick, you'd be lucky you have glasses on. You just start to like pepper spray over your left shoulder.
Yeah, don't sneak up on me.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing sports. So as a goalie, before every game, you kiss your glove and you put it on the pole, or you tap the pole, you do it to the other one, and you hope that the bounces, if there's any bounces, that they bounce off in the proper direction. Even like before any esports events, there was a ritual that I would go through, and even with this podcast or podcasting in general, I try to leave out like a good hour to half an hour and ritualistically do the things in order to get myself in a place to hopefully present a good show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to point out too, that, we I guess we can use superstition sort of more in a broad sense of ritual as well. I don't think that they're incredibly exclusive. One might just have a little bit more processes to it. But yeah, I like that. There are little elements of superstition or ritual that we kind of do, taking the time to prepare yourself mentally for a task that you're about to do. That's definitely part of it as well. And so that kind of dovetails into my next question, since we're on the topic of superstition. Friday the 13th being the most superstitious day that we have. How would you guys explain Friday the 13th to an alien?
Well, I would say, Mr. Alien, if you want a tattoo, today's a great day to get one because it's going to be cheap. Ding, ding.
Right.
I worked it in once. See if I can get to 10.
It's a drinking game. Every time you work in
There it is.
body modification, you have to have a drink.
There it is. Listeners, gather a group around and listen to a tale. Every time I bring up tattoo, you can throw one back. No, but for an alien, yeah, I guess I would try to first find common ground on time because, they're from a different area. They might conceive of it a little bit differently. And I'll say for us, when we go around the sun and we notate this particular day,
Well, this actually could probably take the entire episode if we.
Yeah, she's like getting back to the foundations.
Yeah.
What's a day to us versus an alien? So we have to define the day.
Well, and I thought to myself, what made me pause was I was about to say, this one time of year when we're about, I don't know, so many degrees due west of the sun. And I was like, wait, we're not in the exact same location relative to the sun on any calendar day, are
We're
we?
never in the exact same location ever. We're
Right.
careening through the universe.
Yeah, so it makes it even harder to kind of convey our calendar system to an alien, which is much of what, to me, the Friday the 13th is. It's like this human-made day that we recognize as something a little bit spooky. Watch
And
yourself.
they'll be like, yes, human, we have Glip Glorp on the Zilp pod. That's their Friday the 13th.
Right. They'll be like, actually, what happens is, yeah.
Mike, what about you? Any sort of alien diplomacy there? Right. How do you teach the culture to the aliens?
I would be like, if you don't give us the technologies you haven't given us, you will die today.
You'll have bad
Because
luck.
it is Friday the 13th, and it's cruel to humans, but especially cruel to non-humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then you line up a bunch of awful videos and you show them, you tell them all of this happened on Friday the 13th,
There you go.
and then you get the technology you need.
Mm.
No, I would just say that this is the day, assuming they understand what a day is, where for some reason, for whatever reason, humans expect more bad things to happen to them than usual. Whether it be as mundane as work is busier than usual, or work is not as busy if you consider like boredom a factor. Like any little thing can mess up your whole day, and for some reason on this day the probability is just higher.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
I like that because you touch on one of the things that I found so interesting, kind of about the concept in the first place, which is why do we expect bad things to happen on a particular day? I think that's kind of, and we'll get into that because there is mythology behind it, but even still, I think it persists without the mythology because, when I looked it up, I wasn't aware of the exact origin, but obviously been aware of Friday the 13th for most of my life. Yeah. So why do you think that is? Why do you think we anticipate? Is it that sort of like, I don't know. You guys tell me. Why do you think we anticipate badness on a specific day? Is it that like having the comfort of knowing, like we talked about in the prior episode, I think?
Yeah. It's interesting going back to like the alien example because as Mike was talking, I came up with another diplomatic way of showing aliens, which would be to give an alien a mirror and a hammer and say, okay, alien, break this mirror. And then they break it. And I'll be
That's
like,
so
okay,
neat.
I know. And I'd be like, okay, so now, according to human culture, you have bad luck. Friday the 13th is like that, except it relates to like our conception of time. And it's like once every 365.25 years.
Days.
Days. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
and if we're going to be scientific here, Friday the 13th can happen at, up to 3 times a year. But
Really?
mostly it happens once a year.
Oh, good to know. So yeah, going back to your second question about like bad luck and why I have to say I imagine something happened in a series of events that tipped the scales. There's the Malcolm Gladwell book, The Tipping Point, and humans reach a point of group consensus one way or another, and oftentimes it's like a repetition of patterns. So I would just imagine that something really awful happened a couple times on the 13th, and also the number itself has to be somehow correlative to something not good. So yeah.
Fair enough.
I think it's I mean, life is really difficult, right? Just in general. So it's like the Mercury retrograde thing, where it's like a day to remember that bad stuff can happen and it's not your fault. Like it just bad stuff can randomly happen. You have no control over it.
Right.
But there is a little bit of comfort of going, oh, I stepped in dog poop. It's Friday the 13th. Versus some other day that it happens and you're yelling at the sky or something.
You're yelling at this guy. Yeah.
And technically it's Mercury retrograde now too.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I think in our End of the World episode, we talked about self-fulfilled prophecy. And that was one of the elements that was so attractive to having this psychology about expecting or anticipating the end of the world. So I wonder if there's a little bit of that too, where it's in the chaos of reality, it's comforting to know that you can put the blame, kind of like you said, Mike, you can put the blame on a specific day or an outside circumstance that kind of gives meaning to the chaotic nature of existing.
It would also to be really intriguing is if you do like some sort of like comparative study where you took cultures that did um, celebrate Friday the 13th or did recognize it, and took cultures that didn't, and compared how many people like self-reported like bad things happening, if there is an increase on this particular day versus another day, because that level of expectation, like you're talking about the self-fulfilled prophecy, can start to bring it closer to fruition, right? Like, going back to the CIA hologram stuff, make a little hologram. It's a bad hologram, but you're going to achieve that hologram because for whatever reason on today, it's the thing that you think about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into some of the origins of this. Actually, there are two origin stories that I found that were most prominent when I was looking into this, and to lay some of the groundwork as to why the number 13 is considered sort of unlucky, because I found that the most compelling, and so. Really what it comes down to, from what I've seen, is that 12 is a perfect number and 13 is like an abomination on the number 12. If you think about our mythologies and cultures and stuff, we have the 12 Greek Olympians, you have the 12 months of the year, you have 12 days or 12 hours in a day, the 12 zodiacs, the 12 tribes of Israel. So 12 has long been a sort of not magic, like a master number, and it was considered the number of completion. And so I think that part of the reason 13 is so unlucky is because 12 was regarded as such a perfect number. And this can get right into the question to the math people here, which are Mike and Ayla. Why do you think 12 is why do you think they thought 12 was a perfect number?
Evens and odds, man.
Mm.
I think a lot of it.
Ooh, is it odds and evens? Why did my brain jump to that? Oh Jesus! They did the song "No One Knows," but they did a song called "Odds and Evens" as well. Why can't I remember the band? Queens of the Stone Age.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not going to work.
I remember them.
Yeah, it's a great song. Well, there's a couple different ways you can take this. On the more like occulty side, you can divide things up by 4. So like you can say that 4 is the end of a complete idea. 8 builds on 4 because it's twice. So you have 2 ideas, and 12, like you said, it's a number of completion within multiples. Then you have the multiple of 3, which is also has significance with the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, all of that stuff, Trinities. And whenever you get to like a number 5, or you get to working outside like the 1 to 10 rule, because sometimes 10 is seen as a complete number as well. But whenever you start over again, it's very chaotic. So it can be seen as unlucky, but you could kind of see it as going from a level of mastery, going back to being the fool again. So kind of like taking the tarot cards into kind of thought, where the fool isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means you're starting something new. And then you're always bad at something new. 13 then is starting a new pattern up to 12, to the next 12.
Like step 1 to the 24.
Yeah, so then it's bad again.
Right.
From a number theory side, the number 3, there's 3 points in a triangle, 4 points in a square, and those are both very lovely shapes to work with. But if you have 5 points, then it gets a little bit more chaotic and a little rougher to use. So even going back that far, like down the going down like the Euclid line, the number 13 can be rough, because now you're back into just having a point with a couple of nice shapes to work with.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I knew I could ask you guys. Ayla, do you have any other thoughts that you wanted to add on to that? Why 12 is such a quote unquote complete number?
Yeah, I mean, not much. I think Mike did kind of a good job there. The only thing that came to mind was the concept of zero. And, like, you have 12. It's an even number. And I'm just, because what came to mind was the Knights of Camelot. There's 12. Like, the Round Table, was it 12?
Well, they're
Or am I
12,
thinking the
12
wise men?
apostles. 12 apostles.
Oh, okay, apostles. So yeah, you're right. Like there is a really interesting mythological reason for 12. As for like more of like a sciencey based one, I have to say it has to just be odds and evens, because if you have an even number of anything, then you have to get more of a buy-in to make
divided.
votes. Yeah, exactly. So it's harder to have like that one outlier and always be hitting a stalemate. But then I also thought about like the origins of the mythology and whether or not zero existed then, and how that might possibly shift everything in a really interesting way.
Zeros and negative numbers came later than natural numbers. I think zero was...
It was about 3 BC was when zero appeared in Mesopotamia. Mayans invented it independently circa 4 AD. So I think that's kind of it's interesting.
They don't mention the Persians anymore, I see.
Oh, shoot.
But yeah, zero is usually treated outside of the sets of odds and evens. 13 is a prime number, though.
Well, zero is technically an integer, thereby classifying it as an even number. So if you divide it by 2, it comes out as 0.
Math nerd fight.
I just Googled it because I was wondering the same thing.
There's a bunch of integers, though. They're all integers. Like any of the... like, you can treat zero in its own set, or you could start it, but it would still start as evens as well. I mean, 0 divided by 1 is still 0.
That's what I meant. Zero. Wait, did I say odd? I meant to say even.
And 0 divided by 2, they have the same property. So you can still start them as both. That's what makes 0 kind of special, is that it's an odd and an even.
Quantum.
If you want to take it in using those arguments, if you want to take a look at it, like I get really weird about numbers, so sorry if I'm being combative.
Okay.
Oh no, I just didn't catch the nuance. I was like, I thought I just said that, and then I was like, oh, but you're talking about the odd, so yeah.
Well, that's great because there is a number fight. I do have a number question for you guys that'll be coming up later on. So put a pin in that because you can
let Mr. Smarts answer that one.
No. It's nothing to do with math.
Did you just call yourself a Mister? I'm confused.
I would let Mr. Smarts refer to you.
Not smart.
Well, it seems that the mythologically speaking, the number 13 is also quite significant, and I found this in 2 prime examples that I could pull up. There are a couple other smaller examples, but these are the earliest ones that I could find. And the first one that I can find basically is Loki's dinner party, and it's a short little proverb.
Wait, like Disney's Loki? We're talking about modern mythology, or like OG Loki?
Of course, the Norse god Loki.
Oh, I wanted to hear you say
Tom
the
Hiddleston.
OG Loki all angrily. That would have been great. Because you're funny when they're like.
Okay. Anyways, so this is Loki's dinner party is a small little passage in Norse mythology that talks about the number 13. And it was that 12 of the gods had a dinner party in Valhalla. And the trickster god Loki, who was not invited, arrived as the 13th guest and arranged for Hur, the blind god of winter, to shoot Baldur, who is the god of summer, with a mistletoe-tipped arrow. And it says after he got shot, Baldur died, and the whole earth got dark. And then the whole earth mourned, and it was a bad, unlucky day. And this is one of the reasons that 13 is considered to be an unlucky number, because Loki, being the uninvited guest to dinner, grew the party to the number 13.
Okay.
It's kind of strange that this is the case, but this is actually the case, guys. Like, this is the reason.
Really?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, like, because why? That's so arbitrary. I mean, like, what if he was wearing like Doc Martens? Then Doc Martens would be like bad luck or something. Like the association with just he's the 13th person, right?
Yes,
They could
but
have built
think about it.
associations on so many more other things.
Well, think about it this way: if 12 is a complete set, you have 13 being the unknown entity, the one that's not invited to dinner. And I think that there's the Greek gods have a certain parallel tale about Hades not being invited to dinner. So it's usually death that's not invited to dinner. And
Maleficent.
Yes, I was going to say definitely. Yes, Maleficent is a modern retelling of this story that, when you throw a party, or at least when the gods are throwing a party, they often ignore death, and death comes anyways.
Isn't that a little exclusionary and kind of interesting that we put all the blame on death or his associates, when really we should be blaming the people that were like not being friendly and saying like, no, you can't come to our party. That's
You can't sit with us.
Yeah, make 12 bad luck. Dude.
Yeah. No, it is fair. I mean, it's a fair question. But I do think that it's compelling to think about this uninvited guest at dinner.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense with like breaking bread and stuff. My mind jumped to the 13th Apostle in Dogma, Chris Rock.
Right.
And I kicks written out of the Bible.
Right. Exactly.
That movie is
Yeah.
good. That's a good movie.
But no, that may like you're breaking bread with people. I can understand the exclusionary nature of a party or of a dinner, right? You want people who you can be around that I guess make you feel comfortable, for lack of a better thing. So I get all of that. And then I can see where the bad omen can be the person that arrives who is not invited.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person who is invited that shows up in bad decorum.
Yes, right.
And the arbitrary nature, yeah, but that's how things work. I mean, there's certain, like at least in LA culture, like zoot suits are illegal, right? And it was kind of arbitrary why, like more or less, people that wore zoot suits were committing crimes and were using too much fabric for the war, or that had to go back to the war. So it's always like this seemingly arbitrary things that has deeper meanings. So I wonder, at least within the Nordic mythology, if 13's not elsewhere, but I can see where it starts there.
Yes, it certainly does start there. And it is, I wanted to pull up a little bit more information about this small part of the mythology. But so Baldur is the son of Frigga, whose name is the origin for Friday. So it starts to make a little bit more sense that Baldur, son of Frigga, dies by the hand of the 13th guest. So Friday's son dies by the hand of the 13th guest, sort of thing. And the mistletoe was also interesting because I'm like, well, mistletoe tipped spear? But apparently Frigga was the creator of all things on earth, and she bestowed upon her son Baldur immortality against all things that grow from the earth. Mistletoe is apparently a hemiparasite, as hemiparasitic as a plant, and so it grows from the oak tree or hardwood trees. So it never actually grows from the ground. So Loki uses the mistletoe as the arrow in order to kill Baldur, because it's the one thing that could slay him.
It's pretty dope. I like Loki.
Mm-hmm. Smart. Very
old
smart.
Loki is crazy, but enjoyable.
Yeah.
Definitely a loophole finder.
Yes, Ayla?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I like this. It's interesting to know, like, the 13th guest, when the 13th lands on a Friday. What's interesting is it's not Baldur who's associated with Friday. It's his mom, Frigga.
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 But being the son of Frigga, it caused her a lot of distress when he died. The entire world went dark.
Well, yeah.
And it's a kind of also the story of the seasons, because Balder is the god of summer, and Loki tricks the god of winter into killing him.
That's what I was gonna call attention to, was the winter summer thing, because we have Pescatani Phil, right? The little guy that sees his shadow. Yeah. I don't know when he comes out, but this idea of like a prolonged winter, we would have been more in tune with the seasons back in the day, and maybe they looked a little bit differently. Maybe there was a different. Yeah, I don't know. It's just such an interesting tale that's the origin of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest stories that you can find, and yeah,
it's kind of cool, that subversion though. Because if you think about it, like if a day was named after you, but you have to remember this 13, and that would obviously trigger the whole Loki event happening in your brain. You have to warn your kid all over again.
Right.
That also happens with like 3 a.m. 3 a.m. is the witching hour, right? The subversion of Christ being put on a cross at 3 p.m., that sort of thing. So I find that subversion interesting too. In the least, those two parallels are there.
For sure. And just to sort of follow up with this, the Norse myth, we have the Christian tradition of Jesus Christ and the crucifixion, and the Last Supper. So Jesus has a Last Supper before the night before he's crucified. He brings his 12 apostles to dinner, and Jesus would be considered the 13th guest of that dinner. And that's when he tells his apostles that somebody is going to betray him, and he's going to be going to heaven. And the next day happens to be a Friday. And that is real. Jesus was crucified on a Friday, and had 13 guests at the dinner before he was crucified.
What was up with these dinner parties back in the day? I mean, like, they seem
don't
to
have
be
13 guests at dinner.
Yeah. I mean, I hold a dinner party, and granted, I'm not a god, but these god dinner parties must have been really something.
Yeah. Which, maybe was taken a little bit from the Norse tradition. But we do know, apparently, as much as anyone can know, that Jesus died on a Friday. He obviously had 12 apostles. They had the Last Supper before he was crucified. So it's, interesting how those two stories are very parallel to each other, almost in the inverse, in a way, where it's not Loki that's dying, it's Jesus. So you have the 13th attendant being the one that kills somebody, and then the 13th attendant being the one that actually dies.
Huh. Yeah, that is
found out that Judas was the 13th one to walk through the door.
There is a certain sect of people who do believe that. They believe I think it's called like the Judas thought, where they thought Judas might have been the 13th guest. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So it's interchangeable between Jesus and Judas, apparently. Yeah.
There's the Book of Judas that puts the Last Supper into a strange light. It's not. This probably isn't the time for it, because it derails it. But it's one of those banned books of the Bible. Really interesting read.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so those were the earliest sort of mythological precursors to this whole phenomenon. The phenomenon that I mentioned at the intro, called triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13. And this is where we're going to kind of just casually talk about a couple of the things that we still do in regards to the number 13. But my question to you guys first, and this is the numbers question: what number are you most afraid of?
That's a good question. I would say 13, because I was looking at some of the tattoo flash for today. Drink up, those of you that are listening. And they have a lot that have 13 on it. And I just, I don't really need that tattooed on my body. I don't 100% believe that there's anything wrong with it, but why chance it?
Or you can get pretty fly for a white guy where he asked for a 13, but they drew a 31. That might happen too.
Don't go to the dyslexic tattoo artist.
Yeah, exactly. Mike, what about you? Are you afraid of any number in particular?
Pi.
That's kind of a startling number.
It's quite intimidating, yeah. You said it, pi. Thought about it for a while.
Never ends. I'm sure there's a million patterns in it. It could become a rabbit hole of obsession. I'm trying to think if when I was in college, if there's anything. The thing I guess that scared me in college was applications of infinity. And one of them, of course, being pi. So if there's like a real concrete number, I don't need that whole obsession. I'm good.
Right. Yeah, the never-ending rabbit hole.
Yep.
I hear you. Yeah, infinity is an interesting concept to really sit there and think about or read about for that matter. And as you were talking, I remembered I'm not a big fan of the number of multiples of 5. Well, 3 multiples of 5. So like the number 5 itself is actually one of my favorite numbers. Like aesthetically, I like 5. But it's also known as like if you see 555 on like a clock or something, then it's like change is coming. It's never really
you have to throw salt in the devil's eye. Come on.
There it is.
Put yourself in a circle of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if I see 555 like more than once in a day, I don't like it. So that's probably my bad number.
Well, you never wake up at 5:55 a.m. So you can only see it once in a day.
No, but that meant like I could buy something and it comes out to like 555, and then that evening I see 555, or it's like a confirmation number 555, and I'm like
I'm trying to think of a time like somewhere around like 3 a.m. I'm trying to think of like integers or like integers are things that scared me. There's never anything that's moved me to like put iron nails on door frames and circles of salt and start like protecting my house against demons and things like that. So, but yeah, outside of the intellectual realm, there hasn't been a number that's like freaked me out.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was going to go the cliche route and say 1 because it's the loneliest number. But yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that I asked you guys because I thought that was just like who thinks about what number they're afraid of.
But do you have a number?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know what like afraid would maybe, but I think 0 is maybe one of the more terrifying numbers, right? I mean, applied out through your life, like having 0 food or 0 snacks. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, 0 snacks is the worst.
It is.
0 problems is the worst.
0 problems are just create problems.
Yeah, you make problems.
We get each other, Nick.
Yep.
Well, and it's funny. Like I ordered some groceries the other day, and I included a judicious amount of snacks for both Nick and I. And for whatever reason, all my snacks were out. So yeah, it was awful. Quite sad.
But the fear of 13 is kind of ingrained passively in our society in a couple ways, and I think you guys know the instances which I'm going to be talking about, but particularly on cruise ships and buildings. The deck 13 on a cruise ship is never anything that's occupied, as well as floor 13 in most large buildings is just skipped. If you go on an elevator, you'll see 12 and then 14. And this is a representation of triskaidekaphobia that's remained in our society for really, I don't have any explanation for it.
The building thing is a trip for sure. And there's that
Yeah.
Mitch Hedberg joke where he's like, if you're on floor number 14, come on, you know what floor you're really on. I mean, unless they literally just have like a floor that's the 13th floor
It's
and
just
it opens
empty.
some portal. Yeah. And they're like, just it happens, just build around it. Nobody go there.
You know what it reminded me of is the Rescuers. You can remember that cartoon, the Disney art
the
cartoon?
Rescuers Down Under.
Bernard was a tristiacophobic. He couldn't step on the 13th step on any 13th step. He couldn't step on it. He had to skip it.
And his super like classy transatlantic mouse lady who was like, was she French or
just like Zsa Zsa Gabor, you know?
Yeah. Bernard. Oh,
Yeah.
Bernard. You know, she didn't skip the 13th step, but poor thing, he was so anxious. I love
Isn't
that.
there like 12 steps to Alcohol Anonymous?
Yeah.
And 13th step is relapse.
13th step is relapse,
yeah. There's an album by Perfect Circle called 13th Step.
Well, that's defeatist.
And the 13th step is relapse. Well, it's the first step.
Right. It's starting the set of 12 all over again. So you're back at 1. Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
We're back at 0.
0.
And the 13th step is the first step again. Yeah, that's a good. In LA, do you know what 13th Street is in Santa Monica?
Euclid, baby. Can't name it 13th Street. It's always Euclid. Yeah. Which is so strange. Yeah.
Now if you go back to Greek mathematics, it came up with geometry and the number theory stuff that I was talking about.
Euclid. Yeah.
Euclid.
What? Oh my god. Is that like, that's like the gang version of the Knights Templar or something like that, like that's some sophisticated gaming right there.
Yeah, Euclid Street mathematicians.
Yes.
Right. Who would have thought? That's their real name.
Yep. We do everything by proofs. I don't know what you're talking about with this continuous math. Get the calculus out of my face.
You know how like in robber movies they're like, okay, count to 100 and then they like run out, but they'd be like, count to pi.
Oh my god. I'm just imagining Gangster Euclid. That seems like that should be a thing somewhere. Right. Like the rap battles through history. I want to see a Euclid versus whoever the hell discovered or you can have them both. Calculus at the same time. Whoever discovered that stuff.
The limit does not
Euclid
exist.
versus Pythagoras. There you go.
Well, that'd be a fun one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so okay.
I just realized that the ultimate battle in that situation would be mini golf because they'd be doing all their geometry to make sure that like who gets the ball in the hole with the most
billiards.
shots.
Yeah.
Billiards. Yeah.
Simple geometry.
Yes. But okay, so why, guys? Does anybody know? I don't think I've ever heard an answer to this. Why don't buildings have 13th floors? Why don't ship decks have 13th floors?
Well, every culture has their bad numbers. In China, I believe it's 4. It's close to like poor and death. But they'll skip the 4th floor, something like that. You can ask the same thing why we end everything in 99. They end everything in 88 because it's good luck charms for business and stuff. But it's just the sort of culture they tell you not to do it. And I wonder if there's any stories of somebody that was like, yeah, back in the day, my brother, he was a contractor and he decided to label it 13th floor. 2 months later, the 14th floor collapsed on the 13th floor and everybody was dead or something like that.
I could see it like that, where there was a giant catastrophe for some building on the 13th floor, and then everybody's like, "Yeah, we're not doing that anymore. just don't build that floor."
Into the bad luck within our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you said our culture. Like Valhalla isn't necessarily like United States culture. Why is it that our building people in our country, like still recognize this?
Yeah, it's a carryover from Well, I mean, also from the Christian tradition too, 13. Yeah.
I guess you're right. Yeah. That's probably it. I mean, just in a lot of ways, like that's kind of how we did things in the past, and then nobody really wants to like break with it because you don't want to just test it, you know. But then it's just funny that like, why don't they just number them? Because like Mitch Hedberg says, like it's still the 13th
What if
floor.
because you number it, you create a portal, like you said? What if
I
they're
know.
like, I think there's probably, I'm guarantee you there's a horror movie about this.
About like number
the
magic?
13th floor. No, just like the 13th floor where somebody gets stuck on the 13th floor,
Ooh. I think there's one on like the 13th case, this like social worker woman who is saving this girl, but the girl ends up being like the devil. And so, yeah, like a lot of bad stuff happens.
Okay.
But
Well, 13 Reasons Why.
13 Reasons Why.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
13
Also,
ways to lose a guy. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, you don't want to spend the money to build an actual 13th floor, but as long as you're not, it's like invoking magic. When you talk about it, then you start to bring it into reality, right?
Oh, dang. So like,
as long as you call it the 14th floor, it's not the 13th floor.
You're keeping the juju out.
Yeah.
okay, that's really scary that you talk about like that, like what we're getting into, because I looked up movies with 13 in the title just to be funny, but the first one that came up was Apollo 13. Didn't that one crash?
That one, yes, absolutely.
Why
Yes, it
didn't
did.
they name it Apollo 14? Like right there, we totally jinxed it. No, that's creepy.
I mean,
That's
you could
freaking
argue
out.
that. Yeah.
Bad.
Scientists aren't really superstitious, but
Maybe they should try being.
I think you should try. Like, there's a reason why astronauts are a different level than just like the people that name the ship, right? You got to think.
Well,
on
the travelers tend to be the most superstitious, right? The ship, like a lot of superstitions came from sailors. So it's the ones who have to be at the mercy of the journey that really hold on to the superstition because they need it, like they need anything they can get.
A couple of episodes, we were talking about me sitting there and like the cabin lights flashing on and off, and like I was talking to my girlfriend about that. She goes, "I would have left if I saw that. I was done." And me, I was like rationalizing it away, and I was like, "Well, the electrical engineers did their job right. Even if this whole cabin shorts out, then it's just the cabin. It's not the flight controls or anything." But if they're borrowing voltage from here, then there might be a problem.
Yeah.
But hopefully they're not. But
your mind just starts racing.
Yeah, of course. But that superstition, though, could be helpful, at least. You want everything on your side when you're doing something crazy, right?
Right. And I do think there's
Can I just... Yes. Sorry, I was just going back. What was the cabin flashing lights thing?
In the plane.
So when I got on the plane, like the overhead lights, they're just flashing on and off, and the entertainment center wasn't working. It's one of those things where like the plane is like all the necessary components are fine. It's just some of the extra stuff was broken, and it's like, is this an error I really need to worry about? No, I think we'll be okay. Now, if they turn on the engine and the engine was like, my '87 Ranger's engine, where then I would have been a little worried. I would have probably got off the plane.
Yeah, as anyone should. But
continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that like Final Destination really messed us up because he had that one little thing that went wrong, and then another little thing wasn't working, and it put that seed of doubt. And to what Nick was saying about people being at the mercy of nature or being just unable to control mercy of the journey. Yeah. I like this idea of the concept of luck being some sort of like scribe in our consciousness so that we don't have to fear the unexplainable or the wantonness or the chaos of whatever we're going through.
It's our cosmic egg.
It's our cosmic egg, yeah, and like in a circuitous way. Because like earlier, I was talking about how sometimes I think you're talking about superstition, and I'm like sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. I think I don't feel superstitious when I feel like my efficacy is really high, like I can control things. But if things are out of my control more often, then I can start to see the superstition appear because I'm trying to create like conscious scribes to control it and rein in the chaos or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, you're trying to fill in the gaps, right? The gaps of the things that you cannot control.
Yeah. Like a
Controlling the
sailor.
uncertainty. Yeah, like a sailor. Like you don't kill the albatross. I forgot if a red sun. I think a red sun in the morning is a bad sign.
Yeah, it's like a storm is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, but that stuff has guided our species for a long, long time.
And in particularly our adventurers, those heading into unknown, places unknown.
Are you moving around stuff over there, Ela?
I was. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm trying to shift. I've got a couple of physical ailments.
Okay, happening. Well then, just mute it if you're shuffling things around. Sorry. That's okay.
Last thing. Sorry, Mike was talking about the Flash tattoo. Flash, drink again. Okay. That's
my gosh.
Keep it fun.
All right. Well, I'm going to try to continue on and get to continue some of the social impacts that we were talking about. So we just got done with this, the concept of hotels and cruise ships not having a 13th floor. There are some psychological aspects to Friday the 13th that I was unaware of and kind of interest me a little bit because according to Stress Management Center and Phobia Institute in Asheville, North Carolina, an estimated 17 to 21 million people in the United States are affected by a fear of Friday the 13th, making it the most feared day and date in history. Some people are so paralyzed by the fear that they avoid normal routines in doing business, taking flights, or even getting out of bed. And it's estimated that somewhere between $800 million and $900 million is lost in profits and revenue on Friday the 13th.
I should be flying places on the 13th. I bet a trip anywhere right now would be so cheap.
Yeah,
I'm going to solidify it. I'm going to become the Friday the 13th serial killer. And every victim is going to be on the Friday the 13th. I'm just going to spread that phobia.
Your victims will be all of the places you want to go that are too crowded.
Yeah.
In the subsequent years, you can go to them on the 13th. There you go.
Yeah, it'd be great. I'll develop like a Zodiac style cryptographic system that's really hard to decrypt, purposely broken, and just start doing my magic
as you do
magic.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, go for it. Yeah.
We just had some overlap there. Sorry.
We did. No, I was just talking about I was watching Friday the 13th, the first one. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, hit pause for a minute. If you have, carry on. There's like this notoriety about the camp. So like a kid drowns one summer, and then after that, like two hikers or two camp counselors are murdered. And then there's this whole new set of campers, and the townsfolk are telling them, like, don't go there. That's bad. So I think it's really interesting how it only takes a series of even just two events for something to suddenly be tethered to that. And for us to be like cautious about it just because of something that happened.
The rule of three usually sucks in. First time it happened. I mean, this is what you do. When you're looking at statistics or mathematically. First time an event happened. Second time it was a coincidence. Third time it's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then you run with that.
I like that.
So the first movie happens on the third event, which in turn makes it a pattern that is then later explored through later films.
It's so true. And for those of you listening live today on Microsoft Xbox Live, you can get all 8 of the Friday the 13th movies for $13. That's right, people.
What a deal. Or 13 payments of $1.
If you could do 13 payments of $1, stop after like the fourth one. 5 and 6 are actually okay. But if you get to Manhattan, you've gone too far.
I'm committed to watching all of them. I'm going to be the Halloween or the Friday the 13th expert over here.
have all of them.
Isn't there a Jason in space?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
I don't have
bet
Jason
it's in
X.
there.
But that one is hilarious.
I can
That
imagine
made
it
me
would be.
laugh. So I saw it when I was much younger. It is hilarious because I love Jason. It's my favorite out of Michael Myers, Freddy, out of like the slasher times. Jason was definitely my favorite. But Jason X is hilarious. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
And what's funny
floating in
is
space.
Jason is on a lot of the tattoo flash that you'll see out there. They'll show him up on there.
Mhm. The hockey mask.
Tattoo flash.
There's another study that was kind of contested and a little bit contentious, but I thought I would bring it up anyways because I saw some evidence for it, but it was a study by Scanlon, and Singleton in 1993. It's like a lawyer firm or something.
Wait.
Do we cheat them and how?
Scanlon, Lubin, Scanlon again.
Uh-huh. And Singleton.
So
Simpleton.
it's like two brothers or something who are like, well, we can't go Scanlon and Scanlon. We gotta put a name somewhere.
Got to put some other names in there. Yeah.
Jesus.
Lubin.
Yes, Lubin. In 1993, they said this study concluded that the risk of hospital admissions as a result of transportational accidents may increase as much as 52% on the 13th.
Oh no.
This has been kind of hotly contested, but I haven't seen actually any disapproval. It just says that they have contested this study. What struck me the most is the travel aspect again, because it does feel like travel and superstition tend to go hand in hand. Obviously, we know for storytelling and allegory reasons, it's because you're stepping into the unknown. You're at the mercy of the journey, and you need to have, sort of the favor of the gods in order to return safely. But I thought that was kind of crazy that psychologically we can have this day affect us in such a way. And there was another insurance statistic in 2008 that sort of contradicts this. They say it's actually the reverse. They said that fewer accidents and reports of fire and theft occur when on the 13th. And it's because people are preventatively more careful or just stay home. And so statistically speaking, driving is slightly safer on Friday the 13th.
But I can see where crashing can go up. So, not to like quote Crash, the actual movie, but have you ever been walking up to somebody and you're trying to decide which side to go on, and you do this awkward dance, and you always end up like right facing each other for some reason? And then when you're driving, the times you almost get into an accident, like
that's God telling you to meet that person, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
Aw, that's cute. Yeah, you're like magnets. Just gotta one of you's gotta flip.
Yeah.
I think people are just like that naturally. Like when you're driving and someone's turning left, and for some reason you also turned right, like you want to crash into them. And if you just went left in the opposite lane, you would be fine. Or even it's that. You combine that with the expectation of doing something bad, then it makes sense why, even though there's less people on the road, there would be a higher rate of accident, because you're not thinking of avoiding something. You're thinking of, I'm going to get into an accident. So then you actually you manifest that reality.
Right. And that's what I wanted to sort of touch on for sure, is this concept of, like we've talked about many times before, this sort of self-projecting holographic reality that we live in, where we're in this, our brains and consciousnesses are in a feedback loop with reality. We're constantly receiving reality and creating it at the same time. And I think it's fascinating that a predestined or a predetermined date would have psychological impacts on people like that. Just because it's a number.
I have a fun question for you. What's the 13th letter in the alphabet?
M.
Yeah, look at that.
Mhm.
Bisects it in half.
That's right. That's right. Yes, it does. Yeah. And obviously we have, there's some folks south of the border that are a fan of the number 13 as well. But
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing.
it's a different thing. It's a different
Also very bad, which is bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, those were the sort of the psychological aspects, and we're going to be wrapping up here soon. But I would be remiss if I didn't get into the tale of the Knights Templar. Yeah, I won't go too deep into the weeds about who the Knights Templar are. If you guys are interested, look them up. It's actually super fascinating the way that they were created. But the rundown and the gist of it is basically the Knights Templar were called the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. And they were known as the Order of Solomon's Temple, the Knights Templar, or just simply the Templars. And they were a Catholic military order and one of the most wealthy and popular of the Western Christian military orders. They were founded in 1119, and they were headquartered on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where they exist for nearly 2 centuries in the Middle Ages during the Crusades. And what they made their bones off of was escorting pilgrims to and from Europe and the Holy Land. And they were very good at it. Jerusalem and Europe, yeah.
When it was Christian controlled, right?
Yeah, during the Crusades when they were fighting the Muslims for control over Jerusalem. The travel route was so perilous that you needed to have escorts, and so the Knights Templar became this sort of escorts of the pilgrims and the church. So the church kind of hired out these mercenaries to be escorts for pilgrims coming from Europe and Turkey over to Jerusalem.
That needs to be a movie with like a lot of buff Knights Templar guys. You know what I mean? Like that's so ripe for like a blockbuster. Yeah.
There's a movie called The Kingdom of Heaven. It talks a lot about this stuff.
Oh,
it's a great film. It's about 3 hours. It's an epic. It's over 3 hours long. But a fun movie directed by. It's not really Scott, is it? I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry. Continue.
2005, an epic historical fiction drama. Directed and produced by Ridley Scott. And written by William Monahan. That's Monahan with an M and W. William, which
is an
like
M upside down.
It's an inverted M.
Hold on.
Be afraid.
It looks like an inverted M, but it's a double U.
A W, which is supposed to be a double V.
It's not round. Yeah,
it's not a double V. It's a double U. A double V would be the M subverted. So slow down.
Okay.
Here's my question: is why don't we have the spellings of letters, right? Because like a W, there are a lot of sounds in that. Why don't we have?
We spell it out double U.
No,
that's how we spell it.
It's just a letter. I know, but there's something about
we spell out double and then dash U. That's how you spell W.
You mean like DOUBLE dash
U?
U or YOU?
No, just U. It's not a double U. Not a double U.
Sorry, I've been studying Japanese again.
You guys are throwing me off. I'm trying to wrap this up here.
We're not. We're gonna have a long conversation.
Yep. You had 60 minutes of easygoing podcast. Now you're gonna have one hard as F. 30 minutes. Good luck.
Trying to get
You're gonna have to wrestle back control somehow.
Right. But yeah, so the Knights Templar basically made their bones escorting pilgrims. They were extremely.
They got paid in bones.
Actually, bones were a form of currency during the time of the Crusades.
They're also on Tattoo Flash that are available on the 13th.
You're killing me. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Can I proceed now, please?
I don't know. Man.
Caution.
I don't know, but you're taking like you're messing up my flow now. So I need to finish this. Like,
Oh, the poor travelers rocked around by the sea.
Yeah.
You threw off the Emperor's groove. Sorry. Okay. I'm done
All
now.
right.
I'm done.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Really like at the last stitch of the conversation. And, all right. But they made an incredible amount of money escorting the pilgrims, and they had their headquarters on the Temple Mount, which is where the Temple of Solomon resides. All of this sort of amassing of power and success started to turn the will of the people, or the sort of the public opinion, against them. It was rumored that they actually, through the Crusades and through their pillaging of Jerusalem, were able to obtain the Holy Grail and kept it in their headquarters in Jerusalem. More rumors started to arise that these Templars were worshiping Baphomet, which is the goat-headed demon. There was some speculation as to them having taken the severed head of John the Baptist and worshiping that as well. And this was all kind of a circuitous way for the church and the monarchy to start making their way in on them, because the Knights Templar were the first corporation. They are documented in Wikipedia as the first international corporation, because they were so wealthy and they became such a force. I think they had 1,000 outposts along the corridor of the pilgrimage. And so they gained such influence and notoriety that the monarchs and the church started to get nervous. And they started to get really, really upset, because the Templars stopped paying the church and stopped paying the monarchy at a certain point, because they were so needed, and they got a little bit too big for their britches. So on a fateful day, on Friday, October 13th, 1307, officers of King Philip IV of France arrested hundreds of Knights Templars all at once. They were imprisoned, tortured, and then ultimately executed for the crimes of fraud. There were some spurious crimes of witchcraft as well, and worshiping craven gods. But that sealed the fate of the Knights Templar. And apparently on Friday the 13th, October 1307, the Knights Templar were no more, because of King, what's his name? Philip IV of France. And he basically offed them all. And the conspiracy is that the group went underground and started to infiltrate secret societies. And some of the lineages of the Knights Templar still exist today in the secret societies that we currently have.
Wouldn't be too shocked.
Mm-hmm. So that all to say, isn't it strange that it seems that Friday the 13th seems like such an unlucky day for traveling, when the Knights Templar, the protectors of the travelers, were executed and basically disbanded on Friday the 13th.
Do you think it was some of the surviving lineage pushing out that idea, trying to cut out those profits from the other corporations?
Absolutely, because it specifically says the notion of Friday the 13th wasn't a thing before that. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, especially imagine within like the popular Christian world at the time, right? Like if you used like the like it's like an airline, right? You
pretty
use
much,
this
yeah.
airline to travel somewhere back and forth all the time, and then one day, some a bunch of governments crack down on the airline and blow them all up. Might be a little unlucky to try to travel one day, you know?
Yeah. You might want to not want to travel on that day the next year. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
For sure. But that concludes my Friday the 13th episode, guys. That was all of the information that I could muster from this. And yeah, do you have anything else before we wrap this up?
What do we
Have
know
you-
about?
Both at the same time.
We're so chatty.
You owe me a Coke.
There you go.
There it is.
What were you guys gonna say? Anybody
Go,
first?
Ayla.
Ayla.
Ladies
Michael.
first.
Oh,
Go for
okay. Well, I was just getting suspicious about who this King Philip is, and
Mhm.
according to Wikipedia, which you know how accurate that is, so whoever's listening out there, don't judge me. It says that King Philip was in heavy debt to the Knights Templar, and they suspect that among him declaring it a threat to royal power, it was just he just didn't want to pay his debt, man.
Yeah,
You couldn't
yeah.
afford it.
You couldn't afford it. Yeah, yeah. He actually tried to conspire with England as well to destroy the Knights Templar.
But
Yeah.
how did he get into debt with them? That's what I find interesting. Where are the
Because
receipts?
the countries would pay for the safe travel of pilgrims to the Holy Land. And so you would have the churches, because pilgrimage to the Holy Land became like this whole economy. And the Knights Templar
Interesting.
were the only way you got through.
And the country, the leaders paid for this, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like our president paying for us to pilgrim to some spot and come back.
You have to take in mind, this is during the Crusades, so it was a war as well. So the Knights
Right.
Templar weren't just escorts, they were fighting in the King's Wars.
But these pilgrims, they go, but why? Like, what do they do when they get to their destination and come back? Is it
It's
like
a holy pilgrimage. It's also for trade. The trade routes between the Middle East and Europe. Yeah.
You go pray or something like that.
Mhm.
It's still true now. For example, Muslims would make pilgrimages to Mecca.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm. So it's part of like the religious, cultural, like this is something you have to do in your lifetime kind of thing.
Yeah. American Jewish people, when they're teenagers, go to Israel. They
to
do
the
their
Wailing Wall.
they do their
Yeah.
trip to Israel.
I don't know if they go to the Wailing Wall, but there's one wall standing left of a temple in Jerusalem. We go there, but imagine if Jerusalem was besieged and under war, you would have to hire somebody to get you into Jerusalem for you to do your holy prayer and come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around there's I believe a place where either Christ got crucified or there's some symbol there too for Christians where it's an impetus to go and have a religious experience.
I have
Yeah.
to say the like the honorific side of a lot of these rituals, it's I don't know, it's really sad and really beautiful at the same time. Like I know that there's like the stages of preparation for that crucifixion. Like I know that certain things are built around like where he was taken down versus where the thing happened versus the walk. Like like it's like that event must have been so painful to witness that we have
the
so
Christians
much.
and Catholics have it's called I think it's called the signs of the cross, right? Where
Okay.
it's or the
Stigmata?
stages of the cross. Sorry.
And I was like, you talking about
Mm.
stigmata?
No,
Stigmata.
signs of the cross. Yeah, stages of the cross, where it's the reenactment of the crucifixion process and stuff. And yeah,
Okay.
it's brutal, man.
Yeah.
There's one in Mexico. There's one here. Not like my mind jumped to it because of recreating the stages of the crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a church where it has all these like limestone steps, and you have to crawl your way all the way up to the top, and your knees become bloody, your hands may become bloody, and
I've heard about this.
Yeah, it's usually through that pain within Christianity, at least. It's through that pain that you can experience sort of religious high, I guess, or the sort of sanctification. I forget. I don't know the exact words, but you can recreate those feelings that people that went through it also went through, or that you can feel those same things. And that's a big thing within Christianity, is recreating that pain. It's the same thing with like lashing yourself back in the Dark Ages.
Right.
Yeah. Or if you think about it, like even you have like the Sundance ceremony in certain tribes, and like for Navajos, we were talking about this earlier, Nick, about the Kinalda, which is like a woman's right of way ceremony. But instead of having like one specific spot where it's tethered, it's almost as if the songs act as the tether, as the location. And so when you do because like with the Kinalda, it's a ceremony. It's usually 4 days, 4 nights, and in the evening you have to run into the darkness in one direction, I think towards the east, and you run as far as you can, and you try to run farther each time, and you don't sleep. You stay up all night and you're running out there, and it makes me think about the going up the steps or making but it's a pilgrimage that's happening in like during a song, and the song becomes a location. So I don't know. I just was thinking about different cultures and the way that pain kind of helps us, pain, discomfort, travel, elevates us through like a rite of passage, or maybe deepens a spiritual connection or something like that.
And it ties us all through superstition. Same thing with like Friday the 13th, right? The superstition around it ties our culture together in one way or another. Either you don't go out, or if you travel, you're driving like you're taking your DMV test. Your hands are at 3 and 9, or is it 10 and 2? Sorry, 10 and 2.
Yeah, 10 and 2.
You're doing everything proper. You're just trying to make sure that you don't die on the way to your travels. These are like very strong connections that tie strangers together in things that we call culture. And across different cultures, there's similar things that tie them together, but we can always talk about how different cultures can connect. Just like you were saying, it's with the song dance, this pilgrimage to Jerusalem, or climbing up the steps, or going to work on Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Or self-flagellation, self-torture, scarification, tattoos, like flash tattoos.
You're just trying to make me drink, aren't you?
Bringing it back.
Yeah. No, you're right, though. That sort of tattooing is a very important ritual. That is scarification and body mutilation. A little bit of that flagellation, self-flagellation coming in,
Yeah, there's cultures that, like scarification is kind of a dirty word because it's like, kind of, well, there's a lot of reasons, but in certain cultures, like they'll use scarification to beautify the body, and that the act of it isn't something psychologically concerning. It's actually a way to transcend or internalize certain like beliefs. So it's just interesting. The human experience is so... Yeah.
I smell I definitely sense a rite of passage episode at some point, because this would fall all right into that for sure. And I think that would be a pretty good conversation, because there are tons of rites of passage, man. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Like surviving your first Friday the 13th.
There you go.
Yeah.
My big one, the one that I hold in my heart, is getting through the single needle tattoo. It wasn't like a proper like tattoo session. It was a needle gun with a giant freaking needle in it. It was only one needle, but getting through it without showing any pain. Just like one would through a proper tattoo session. But yeah, no, those rites of passage for your own self is important. As long as you can remain honest with yourself.
Right. And pay the Templars, or you might have bad luck. So
go Assassin's Creed style.
Go Assassin's
And don't
Creed
be
style.
exclusionary at your dinner parties, people. Invite
That's
your
right.
friends, or make
Yeah.
sure your friends do not tell the other friend that's not invited.
There's a great episode of The Office with Pam where she was trying to figure, like, she said that she sent invites to people in the office, but not to everybody. Somebody who tells her, so she was just like, yeah, I haven't gotten my invite yet. She's like, things can get awkward around the office.
It was Angela. She didn't want Angela to come. And then she was like, oh, I just didn't have your zip code, and gave her. Or,
Well, and
no, I'm pretty sure all of them live in the same zip code.
Yeah, invite whoever you want. If the 13th person comes around, just expect some bad luck. It was you fucked up somewhere. It was on you.
If the 13th person comes, make them bring a guest. There you go.
there it
Done.
is.
There's
Yeah.
still
all good.
13.
Yeah, but at least it's not 13. If Loki had
14.
brought a guest, everything would have been fine.
Yeah,
Like
and
Dwight and the
technically-
dinner party. He brought a
technically-
guest and glass.
What if you bring a clone? If I brought a
But
clone to myself, is that 13 and 14, or is it just 13?
13 and 13.
How are you going to
Two
bring a
sets of
clone?
13.
Where are you getting a clone from? No, I was going to say that's why Loki maybe shot the guy. He's like, look, I know I'm the 13th guest, but I'm just going to off winter over here. And now we're back to 12. Bada bing,
That's
bada
true.
boom.
That's true. You guys were so upset about the 13. I'll just kill one of you. Now we're
Mhm.
12. Perfect.
Right.
Look,
right.
it feels really bad when you're not invited. When there's like
It
a
does.
whole thing going on,
It's very
and
hurtful.
you're just
Yeah.
not the invited
Shindig.
one. You want to show up. You want to like kick down the door and be like, "I'm still here."
Shoot mistletoe arrows at everybody.
It
Alright.
didn't grow in the ground, mother.
Mhm. Well, I think that's it for me tonight. Do you guys have anything you want to add before I wrap this up? It's good.
Mm.
I do have a question.
hmm
Has anything bad ever happened to you on Friday the 13th that you can remember?
Nah, I mean, I don't know. Knock wood, right? I guess I still have a few more times, but no, I don't think so. And if it did, I think I would have like remembered. I would have like really demarcated that in my memory. So I don't think so. Yeah.
What about you, Ayla?
Well, today I have some tendon issues, so that's kind of not great, but nothing really sticks out. And this could have started yesterday. So I don't think anything super Friday the 13th E, but we do have a comment here. Let's see. Oh,
So you
okay.
get
We
the
said
reference.
yeah, I do now. It's from
Good
the
Mike.
movie Friday the
Yeah.
13th.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I was, that movie. Yeah, can we just pause for a minute and talk about that movie? Because there's a lot of stuff going on in there that I really appreciated and understand why it's like a cult classic.
Mhm. Yeah, it is classic.
I think it's from the word. Oh, I can't tell you.
Well,
Oh,
that's
'cause there's, like,
just
a future
typing,
episode?
withholding.
I can't know because it ruins a plot point that
Ah,
Ayla hasn't seen yet.
yeah, she's still got 7 movies to watch. So
I haven't seen any of them.
No,
I just
it's,
watched the first one tonight for the first time.
This is a plot point in the first movie, but it's a part of a word.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I got, spoiler alert, I got as far as Jason's mom admitting that she was Jason's mom, that her kid was the one that drowned, and confronting
Jason's
the woman.
mom has got it going on.
Jason's mom. Yeah, that's
Alright.
a good song. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll return to this conversation at a later point, but probably on screen time continuum. But
Very creepy.
So creepy.
Yeah.
so good in the sound effects department. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Very
mhm.
unique.
Have
All right.
you had sorry, just pointing the question to Mike. Mike, have you had a bad Friday the 13th or anything stick out?
Not that I can remember. I have a lot of bad luck in my life, but I figure I've also had a lot of good luck. So I figure if you have a lot of good luck, you're probably bound to have a lot of bad luck. But never anything. I've had some awful things happen on the 12th. And I would actually have to get back because I don't know if I left on a Thursday and got back on a Friday or left on a Thursday and got back on a Thursday. Maybe, but nothing that stands out in my mind immediately as I can like declare like, yeah, that was the worst thing. And most of my bad luck was sown by my deeds long before the day of the bad luck happened.
Got it.
Yeah. Big Mike says no, he hasn't had anything happen to him on a Friday the 13th. Good to hear, man. And good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss you, man. We're gonna have to hang out soon. That way we can chop it up and have some fun.
We gotta get him on the podcast.
I agree. I wanted to get him on a at least screen time continuum, or on this one we'll have to talk. He loves Coast to Coast, so I'm sure he's got a lot to say on weird topics and stuff. So,
and I'm always texting him anytime I'm watching a scary movie. I'm like, "Have you seen this one? Oh my god, this happened. Now this happened. Now this happened." What's the Solomon Grundy reference? What's that?
That's the DC zombie guy, right? It's kind of like
I thought it was older tell. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. Some. I don't remember.
I don't know. I think Solomon Grundy's DC, and he's the he's like that zombie Hulk.
No, he is, but I thought it came back. It came from like a Grimm's tale.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Let me look.
Okay, I would
anyways.
100% see a movie with Solomon Grundy and Professor Hulk together in a movie. You know,
Well,
like
that's
that would
crossing
be good.
universes. All right,
I don't
we're
care.
getting all right. I'm wrapping this up, guys. Okay.
Yeah, no, hold on.
This is stuff we could be doing after the episode.
Like,
we're
Put the
not-
music on, then it'll work.
Century.
Jesus. All right, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. We hope that you guys have a wonderful night, and happy Friday the 13th to all of you out there. We really appreciate all of you, and it means a whole lot to us. Even though I have somebody trying to, I mean, like, seriously, you're getting on my last nerve with that. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. These my co-hosts are children today. I don't know what happened, but thank you. Give us a like, thumbs up, and we love you guys. Appreciate all of you. Shout out to Big Mike. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom, everybody. Good night.
Get that tattoo flash.
Oh my god. All right, we're done.